What's up, Internet? I'm very excited to talk about Assassin's Creed Syndicate. We've got Mac here, who's the creative director on the game, and I'm a huge Assassin's Creed fan. Tell us all about the new game.
So Assassin's Creed Syndicate takes place in London in 1860, right in the middle of the Industrial Revolution. It's what we like to call the first modern Assassin's Creed game. So the game will be filled with innovations that will really make it feel different than the other years. You'll have something that's super cool, like a revolver, like a cold gun, a 6-shooter. That really changes the way you approach situations. You'll have a rope launcher, so you can climb on those taller buildings much faster than ever before, and you can keep your momentum by doing a zip line across the wider streets of London. You'll have carriages and tons of other things.
That's awesome. Yeah, I got my chance to get a little bit of hands-on with it, and it feels very much Assassin's Creed, but there's so much new stuff that I'm just like aching to get in. I mean, the rope launcher is great. Like getting between those giant, tall buildings, be able to go back and forth without having to like work your way down, then find a rope, then go back up.
Yeah.
And this is pretty cool. It's a neat effect. It's neat, like new kind of take on the series. So.
It makes the navigation more fluid, which is something that we're really working hard on. So the combinations of the improvements on the navigation from last year and the rope launcher, I think will make it for a very fun experience for our players.
Yeah, and you've got a lot of new stuff like the carriages you were saying, for example, being able to jump on and off. And like I know at one point I was on one, jumped on top, and then shot a guy who was chasing me.
Yeah, that's one of the things I like about those carriages is that they are physics driven. So there are tons of weird things that happen. Like there's a lot of immersion gameplay that happens, and I can't wait to see what we're going to see on YouTube when our players put their hands on it. I mean, at one point I was on top of the carriage, like you just mentioned, and my horses died, and then my cart flipped, and then I was in the air, took my gun out, and shot someone. So it was like super cool. So lots of unexpected things that are going to happen with that.
Nice. And I mean, with Assassin's Creed, we always have some amazing characters in the game. I mean, Ezio is still one of my favorite characters of all time. And now we've got Jacob and Evie Frye, right? So tell me about those guys.
So Jacob and Evie are twins, but Evie keeps reminding Jacob that she's the oldest one of the two. So there's a lot of camaraderie and rivalry going on between the two, the brother and sister. Jacob is the more brash of the two, so he'll just go in every situation and tack it head on with a smile. He's someone who really enjoys what he's doing. Evie, she's more restrained. She's more strategic. She thinks before she acts. So there will be a lot of tension and conflict between the two twins as their story evolves, and they'll meet in the middle. So we've got a great story for our players this year that's really centered around the evolution of those two characters.
Yeah.
For the last few years, Assassin's Creed has slowly introduced different types of multiplayer. Last year we had co-op. I've heard different rumblings about the game. Purely single player this time around, right?
This year we've decided to focus all our development efforts on the single player experience. So all our 9 studios that are working together with us on the game are focusing on creating the biggest playground that we've ever built. From the feedback that we have from our players, this is what they want. They want us to focus on making this experience, making it fit very well together. So.
On that note, we've also gone through, the most interesting for me personally is always the Animus integration of how you've done it. Either you have been Desmond or you've been essentially a game tester. The last time, I believe you were pretty much just living like you were just someone who owned an Animus and you're just using it like a consumer product. Have you talked at all about what you guys are doing this time around for Syndicate?
Absolutely. We are continuing the present day story. There is this present day component, but we'll talk about it a bit later, so you'll have to stay tuned for that one. I know people are asking lots of questions, but we've got something very exciting for them this year.
Yeah, I like that aspect of it, where it kind of makes, Ubisoft as a company that exists in the video game that you're playing. That's really weird kind of, postmodern world thing going on with that.
Yeah,
I dig that a lot.
You've seen it in Watch Dogs. So,
yeah, and then it exists in Watch Dogs too, so you kind of this big extended universe. Yeah. But man, I'm pumped for the game. Like, Kovic, you're a big fan of Assassin's Creed as well, right?
Very much, yeah. I've played every single one. It is like, it quickly became one of my favorite franchises. I mean, I remember back in 2000 and I want to say 5 or 6 when we first saw the first Assassin's Creed, and everyone was like, "Is it on PS3? Is it on Xbox?" It's like, who cares? But back when that was an actual controversy, and since 2 is like one of my all-time favorite ones. I've just been hooked on the series. There's always something redeemable about it. There's always something awesome. I kind of wish you guys would give me a break once in a while. I mean, last year you released 2 of them, and I only got hands on Unity. But Syndicate does look like one that I very much want to get into, just because This sounds nerdy. You're gonna make fun of me, Jack. But I mean, I like the steampunk aspect. I know it's not steampunk, but
I'll make fun of you for many things. That's not one of them.
I'm seeing a lot of gears and top hats, and I'm kind of into it.
Yeah, and I think the rope launcher captures kind of the essence of this more steampunk feeling. So we're really careful with that, though, because we need to stay historically accurate. That's the core of our franchise, but still fun to have have a bit of fun with those steampunkish gadgets. But we draw a lot of inspiration. I know I think you guys like the Assassin's Creed Brotherhood a lot. Like you had this big single city, and one of the things that we're doing this year, again taking our cues from Brotherhood, is making sure that all the activities that you do in the world contribute to the fantasy of the game, which is conquering London. And so both the open world activities and the main storyline have the same objective, which is conquering London. In the main narrative, you do it by taking out the Templar organization, and in the open world, you take down their street gangs by building your own. So it's everything that you do will contribute to this objective.
Yeah, and it feels like, too, I know you talked about focusing a lot more on kind of picking your battles. Like if I remember a lot of like Assassin's Creed 2 and Revelations, it was like you would jump in the middle of like 20 guys and be like, all right, hang on, let me just slaughter all of them. Now it's kind of like you get 1 or 2 guys on you, you need to run. You need to get, more, a better spot to attack them. So
Yeah.
was that something you guys focused on?
Yeah, absolutely, because we want to fight had become too easy for our players, I think. And my opinion is that the game shines when you can be stealthy as well. But there's no incentive to be stealthy if you can just jump into a bunch of 20 guys and like rip them apart.
Yeah.
So last year in Assassin's Creed Unity, we made the combat a bit more difficult for our players, and it's something that players can expect again this year because we want to encourage them to use the different pillars of the game, which are navigation, stealth, and fight. So all the different setups that we have in the game kind of support different approaches. You can approach from the top, use your zip line, strategically take out the enemies, or if you invest a lot of fight on your equipment, on your customization, and you decide that you want to just approach it head on and you're good at combat, well, go ahead and do it.
And I like, too, now you have different instances where you can use the world to help you kill some people. Like, I played, for example, I knocked down some barrels, landed on a guy's head and exploded, and then, yeah, the poison's back, which I love. Nothing is better than poisoning a brute and just watch him take out everyone you need to go kill. So.
Yeah, did you try to use the hallucinogenic darts? I can't believe I said it correctly, but on TV, so I'm give myself a hand. But did you try to do it on the garbage can that was on fire?
Oh yeah, like
if
kind
you
of
do that, it
expands
has
it,
an
right?
area of effect, so you can draw enemies in. So in terms of stealth this year, we're bringing back the whistle, and
nice.
we are also improving the tools that you have. I think stealth is cool when you can manipulate the enemies, right? So the throwing knives, for example, you can throw them on a wall, and it will create a distraction. So you can move the enemies around like that, and then they can move on top of this object that you can just shoot at, and then it will fall on them and kill them all. So
Now, so what have you done about all the enemies up on the roofs? Like that's like the worst part. Where you're trying to be sneaking around, all of a sudden it's like, oh, there's 4 guys with sniper rifles. Like, is there any tricky way to get around those guys?
So last year, the enemies could not really follow you onto the rooftops, so they were kind of static snipers on rooftops. This year, we're improving upon that. You won't see many enemies on rooftops, but they can follow you there.
Okay.
So it's not just a question of escaping on the rooftops. Then you have to move from building to building to be able to avoid them because they can climb after you and try to make your life harder.
Nice. And with the setting being the Industrial Revolution, like they were talking about earlier, there's trains in the game. There's a lot of new technology. What was that your brainstorming session like? Like, how can we kill people in different ways with new technology? You said there's a train kill. How does that work?
So let me just give a small precision on that. So you can kill people on trains. You cannot drop a train on them. But you can unhinge the trains. You can do so we're trying to build tools that are really systemic so that our players can use different approaches. So let's say you're doing a raid on a train and you're trying to get its cargo. So you can approach it, try to aggro the enemies to the back of the train, unhinge them, and just say bye-bye. So that's all the kind of things you can do with the environment. So trying to really let a lot of freedom to our players.
Cool.
Go ahead, sorry.
Yeah, speaking of the setting, one thing that kind of popped into my mind as soon as I saw the trailer is that Templars typically take the place of unquestioned villains throughout history, or just one side of a pretty polar conflict. It seems like the setup here is that the assassins kind of become the champion of the working men, whereas the Templars are kind of the greedy bosses that are exploiting labor and like child labor and all that kind of stuff, because that was kind of breaking out at the time. Is that kind of what you were going for?
It's kind of what we're going for. So the Templars, one of the things we're doing differently in terms of story is that right from the start, you know who the bad guy is. He is Crawford Stark, charge of all the different aspects of London. He's trying to keep the like wealth for himself, control for himself. He doesn't want to share with the other people, and not because he has bad intentions, because he thinks that this is how humanity will evolve. He thinks that he knows what's best for people and that he should be in charge from the shadows. So he controls transportations, science. He's got his hands in everything, and he's got people in charge. So, and the gangs are one of the aspects through which he controls the working classes. So right from the start, you know exactly the setup to the game, and we open it up for players. So you go in there, you take out the lieutenants, you take out the Templar, the gang bosses, and you do it in the way you want.
Okay, got some questions from the internet. Joshua Grouth, I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly, asks, how does switching between Jacob and Evie work at the beginning of missions and free roam, etc.?
Cool. So when you're in free roam, when you're in the city, in the open world, you can choose between playing as Jacob or as Evie. It's up to player choice, and you can take advantage of their different customization options, their different suits, and their different skills. In the main narrative path, you get some missions as Jacob and some missions as Evie. So they're kind of story intertwines, and we move you along to the story playing both as Jacob and Evie.
Cool. Does one have a different fighting technique over the other? Like, is Jacob more of a brute and Evie's more sneaky, or?
Exactly. You just you put the finger on it. So Jacob, his personality, he's more brash. So we've got a few more skills for him in the combat part of the tree, and Evie has more stealth skills. Cool. So I can't wait to see how our players, we're tracking that, we're monitoring who's going to play with what and what kind of split we have.
Cool. Yeah, it's definitely like you can see Jacob in the trailer, like, calling the rooks together, and it's like, it's kind of cool. It's nice to have sort of that bravado back in, the series, and kind of see you guys like, all right, I could see fighting with him. That'd be fun.
Yeah, one of the things I'm sure you're going to enjoy in the game is that you grow the influence of your gang, right? And you can recruit them when you see them in the streets, and they will come with you. So if you hop on a vehicle, they'll jump on the vehicle with you. And if there's not enough place left on that vehicle, they'll hijack one themselves. So you move through the city with your gang around you, and then you can drop into a gang war, and it's super cool.
That's going to be fun. I
kind of want to end with a question that I usually ask every year with the Ubisoft developers. Not that I don't want you to give anything away for any future plans or anything like that, but where would you personally like to see the Assassin's Creed franchise go? Would you like to be a Western, maybe in space one day? What would you like to see?
My first dream was really, when I started working on Assassin's Creed all those years ago, was to do a game set in Victorian England. That was the biggest dream that I had. This one is like, I can check it off, because we were just waiting for the technology to catch up to be able to represent this city in the way that we are doing now. But there are so many other places we can explore. That's what's cool about Assassin's Creed, is that there's no shortage of historical times, periods, places that we could visit. But I'm not going to tell you what my other favorite is, because it would sell things away.
Well, I want to throw one out there for you. 1980s Miami, I think, would be perfect. Just hear me out.
And cocaine cartels.
There's a lot of cocaine.
And that's it. Just cocaine.
That's it. Yeah.
Pre-order bonuses.
Perfect.
Little bag of cocaine.
I'm taking notes.
Well, so how does the Assassin's Creed Chronicles? You have a whole new series of those coming out. How does that kind of interact with the larger games? I mean, are we going to see stuff in the Chronicles that is going to affect the Assassin's Creed Syndicate?
Well, I think what we see in Chronicles and all the periods is that we can explore different periods of time and different characters and tell more stories. So it's a great test bed, if I may, for us, in order to be able to see the interest for different periods, different characters, different styles, and they are beautiful games, and I just hope our players like them.
Yeah, no, they're a lot of fun too. It's a completely different style of game, but it still has that same essence of Assassin's Creed, which I love. Now, one thing Ubisoft has done this year that I respect a lot is you got to. I mean, Unity, Assassin's Creed Unity got a lot of criticism, where they had a lot of issues. Ultimately, it was, pretty much everything was fixed. But you guys haven't shied away from that. You've been very open in saying, we received some negative feedback, and now you're approaching it in a different way. What was sort of the thought process behind that? I know it's really hard for some companies to admit they've done some wrong. So what was sort of the thought behind that?
Matt, we're a company that really cares about the feedback from our player. We care about our fans. Here at E3, we invited, I don't know, I think 30 or 40 star players from around the world to be our guests at E3. I was giving them a masterclass yesterday, talking to them, interacting with them. So we really, really care as a company for what our players, our fans think. So one of the things we're doing this year, and that we're bringing a hands-on demo at E3, and again, it's to gather the feedback from our players. And not only that, we're showing the game in 7 different countries. We're taking E3 around the world, so 7 cities across Europe. We've got people playing it right now, and I'm seeing on Twitter the feedback that we receive from our fans, and we're trying to complete the game much earlier this year. This is why we have the hands-on at E3. But again, it's to take into account the feedback that we receive from our players and make sure they have a smile on their face on October 23rd.
All right, well, that's it. I mean, Assassin's Creed Syndicate looks fantastic. I'm excited to play it, and thank you for coming and joining us on the YouTube stage. And
thank you for having me.
All right, now let's go over to Bruce.
They wish.
Or not.
She got a mic away from her.
Work either. There we go. Okay, so we have a few questions from Twitter for you, if that's all right. The first question is...
Adam, how do you like not having a mic? Do you have
He likes it
another
a
one
lot.
of these
Okay.
that- yeah.
I missed my mic.
It's mine now.
This question's
didn't
from
have any this
Jade on
morning,
Twitter, and
so-
she says, since it's based in England and Whitechapel, with me a section you can go to, do you think we'll see anything with Jack the Ripper?
DLC, please.
That'd be
So
fun.
the game is set in 1868. That's before the time of Jack the Ripper, but you'll have to stay tuned through the summer so that we can tell you more about what's coming up for the game.
That sounds pretty positive to
Yeah.
me. All right.
That was a vague tease, I think.
Yeah.
Time travel.
On a related note, at Whom's the Con asks, he said, well, comments, I know it's fiction, but Sherlock Holmes pulls?
Well, Sherlock Holmes is a fictional character, so you can.
What? I thought he was real.
But
What about Sir Arthur Conan Doyle?
interesting.
Because
So
you had Da Vinci.
So he was quite young at the time, but you'll see him with the Dreadful Crimes, which is an extension that we're bringing to PlayStation 4.
I was going to ask, Assassin's Creed always has very notable historical figures. The only thing that I think comes to mind is Upton Sinclair. I can't think of anyone from that specific time period that we'd be aware of. Or is that one of the trying to hit having notable historical figures in the game?
Well, one of the reasons we chose 1868 is because it allows us to maximize the amount of historical characters that we'll have. We'll have Charles Darwin to wrote the theory of evolution. You'll have Charles Dickens. And I'm sure if you look up on Wikipedia, you'll find many other ones, but we'll talk more about them throughout the summer.
Yeah, and we also have royalty too, so that could be fun.
Yeah, absolutely. Queen Victoria,
Yeah.
she's in there, and many more people.
Nice.
Oh, yeah. So
Sorry,
we were just messing around with the screen above you.
Up there.
So this question from Hamza, and he says, I don't know, you might have already answered this, but I want to make sure Hamza heard it. How large is the world compared to Assassin's Creed Unity?
So the world is bigger than Assassin's Creed Unity. It's in fact the biggest one that we have ever built. However, I don't just think that we need to make it bigger. We need to make it more fun, which is why every activity that you do will contribute to this fantasy of the game, like I was explaining a bit earlier.
Me and my potato asks, what about Xiao Jun's story? Are we ever going to get something about her?
I can't speak to that. I'm sorry.
All right.
All right, another question from Fernando. There's been a lot of unique time periods and cities in Assassin's Creed, and this is a question I know you're tired of hearing. What next time period and city would you personally like to see Assassin's Creed?
already asked that
he
one.
asked that
I'm just
question.
look, I see it all over Twitter.
That's a fantastic question. I wish one of our guys would have asked that question.
Oh, God, we'd sound real smart if that happened.
I'm sorry. You know I can't answer that one.
I know.
It would give too much away. I would love to.
All right,
You know
give
what?
us-
I'm
give-
glad you told Twitter that, though.
All right, give us one more really good question and we can wrap up on. One more good
All
question.
right, here we go. How, Heroics X Idiot 92 asks, how will the hat switching system work?
Ooh, very
That's
important.
A good question. So I answered that question the other day, and I think I might have started an internet meme in the sense that I called them. It's my French accent. I have a hard time saying opera, so I say opera hat. So I say Oprah hat. So I just imagine Oprah with a hat on. But so the Victorians invented collapsible hats.
Okay.
So that's kind of how it works. So Jacob just collapses his hat and puts it in his coat. So when Jacob is in stealth, he puts his hood on, collapses his hat, and puts it in his pocket. And when he returns to a more normal stance, shoo, he flips back the hat on.
I would love to see that mocap session with the collapsible hat.
Yeah, squishing it in.
Absolutely. Cool. Well, I mean, I'm very excited for the game. You guys excited for the game too?
Absolutely.
Excellent. Well, cool. Well, Mac, thank you very much for coming by and showing
you.
off the game. It's been a lot of fun.